Tonight, on First at 9 this Friday the 28th of March 2025. Big Brother's visit. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to embark on an official visit to Sri Lanka from the 4th to the 6th of April. MOUs on energy connectivity, digitization, defense, health and grant assistance to be exchanged during the visit. Strategic approach. Crucial to adopt a national security strategy to protect vital mineral resources, says expert.
With our mineral resources will be sought after. Coming geopolitical battles, energy transition.
Chamara's crimes. Court reveals further misconduct of parliamentarian Chamara Sampath a day after his arrest over misappropriation of public funds and criminal breach of trust.
Chilo Dairy, Sri Lanka Kiren Perata. ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසින් ලබාගත හැක.
කන්ට පරිස්සම් කරගත්තොත් අපි පරිස්සම්.
ඉතින් මොකටද නිකන් නාගන්නේ? ස්වදේශී කොහොඹ ලෙමන් ග්‍රාස් අද කාලෙට ෆ්‍රෙෂ්ම විසඳුම.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Drisingha joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world, brought to you by the only Sri Lankan media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms, recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now on your top story tonight, Indian Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri noted that memoranda of understanding pertaining to energy connectivity, digitization, defense, health and multifaceted grant assistance inked between Sri Lanka and India will be exchanged during Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Sri Lanka. Officially announcing the visit, Foreign Secretary Misri also highlighted that Prime Minister Modi is expected to inaugurate India-backed development projects in Anuradhapura. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi and President Anura Dissanayake are also scheduled to virtually witness the groundbreaking ceremony of the Sampur solar energy project.
According to the Indian Ministry of External Affairs, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will first visit Bangkok, Thailand from the 3rd to the 4th of April, where he will grace the 6th BIMSTEC summit hosted by Thailand, the current BIMSTEC chair. This will mark Prime Minister Modi's third official visit to Thailand. Indian Prime Minister Modi is then scheduled to touch down in Sri Lanka on the 4th of April and remain in the island until the 6th of April. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be accompanied by India's Minister of External Affairs S. Jaishankar, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri and other senior officials of the Government of India. Addressing a press briefing today, Indian Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri shared details on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's official visit to Sri Lanka.
President Dissanayake had visited New Delhi in December of 2024 on his first overseas visit after taking office as president. Now Prime Minister Modi is returning this visit by becoming the first foreign leader to be hosted by President Dissanayake in his capacity as president of Sri Lanka. These visits, coming as they do in close succession, reflect the importance that both countries, India and Sri Lanka, attach to their bilateral relations. This visit therefore also comes in the context of a recovering Sri Lankan economy, and as Sri Lanka resumes its growth path, the visit is coming at an opportune moment for giving the two countries an opportunity to explore new areas of partnership and cooperation. You would also recall the joint statement that was adopted on the occasion of President Dissanayake's visit in December 2024, where there was a commitment to explore the complementarities in the two economies for mutual benefit. And taking that forward, this visit too will focus on promoting investments and deepening connectivity. The Prime Minister will arrive in Colombo on the evening of the 4th of April. There will be a ceremonial welcome there, and the following day, the 5th of April, will be the main day of engagements in Colombo. Prime Minister and President will hold official discussions. They will together dedicate several projects that are being built with Indian assistance in Sri Lanka, and will also witness the exchange of several MOUs pertaining to energy connectivity, digitization, defense, health and multi-sectoral grant assistance. The two leaders will also witness the virtual groundbreaking of the Sampur solar energy project. The Prime Minister will meet with other political leaders in Sri Lanka during his stay in Colombo, and the President will also host a state banquet in his honor. The following day, on April 6, President Dissanayake and Prime Minister will travel together to the historic city of Anuradhapura. They will pay their respects at the Jayashri Mahabodhi temple there. During the visit to Anuradhapura, the two leaders will also inaugurate two India-assisted projects in Anuradhapura, and the Prime Minister will leave for home later on the 6th of April.
පිරිපුන් ජීවිතයකට ඔබ සමගින් පෙරට Union Assurance. චන්දුරුසුමේ කාගෙන් මන අපේ සිග TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්.
Director of the Centre for Strategic Assessment and Senior Lecturer of the Strategic Studies at the Sir John Kutulawala Defence University, Dr. Harinda Vidanage, says Sri Lanka must promptly adopt a national security strategy to protect the country's vital mineral resources. Joining our current affairs program at Hyde Park with Indiva Yamuwatta, Dr. Vidanage highlighted that Sri Lanka's minerals will be a highly sought after resource in the upcoming geopolitical battle for energy transition.
How do we look at securing partnerships while not putting Sri Lanka's resources, energy security at risk?
Energy security is now one of the most geopolitically weaponized areas of focus. We are now in a stage of what we call energy transition debate. The need to push towards ability to generate energy through non-fossilized means. The biggest debate in the energy transition is how do you store energy and how do you process that into our mundane needs. So now if you look at the world, the biggest geopolitical hot potato today is not weapons or anything, but it's electrical vehicles. So there's a big EV battle between China and the United States and the West. Nearly 70 to 80% of energy transition technology batteries are made in China. 90% of solar panels are made in China. Electronification, digitization leads to more components, which needs minerals. So there comes the critical mineral geopolitical debate. Countries need about 200 times the minerals we used before to sustain this. For example, data centers need copper. Copper is one of the most weaponized supply chains in the world now. That is why China is investing in Peru. Peru has the largest copper mine in Central and South America. For countries like Sri Lanka, how do we manage our mineral resources? Because our mineral resources will be sought after. And also the transit and transfer of minerals will be focus of the coming geopolitical battle.
Do you think we've had any focus on protecting our minerals?
This is the problem with the lack of a national security strategy. If you have a national security strategy, you easily can bring these supplies into the national security framing and objective. That's how the Americans did. Americans have brought a couple of acts elevating certain minerals into critical minerals under the national security. Same with India, same with China. That is not good for the rest of the world because they are going to create a very weaponized supply chain that's going to be very hard for other countries. We will be squeezed from two sides. One with the supply chains, the second is with our own policies towards whatever we have.
Now, Deputy Minister of Tourism, Professor Ruwan Ranasinghe says Sri Lanka has the potential to be a year-round tourist destination rather than a seasonal destination. Speaking to media at an event organized by the Tourism Promotion Bureau, the Deputy Minister said the government intends to attract visitors to the interior of the island and not just its coastlines.
An event themed Sri Lanka, A Story for Every Season, was held yesterday in Colombo with the participation of international bloggers. The event was organized by the Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau to encourage the bloggers to create digital content showcasing their experiences in Sri Lanka, to promote Sri Lanka as a year-round tourist destination, to address the seasonal decline in tourist arrivals between April and November. The event was attended by Deputy Minister of Tourism, Professor Ruwan Ranasinghe.
India is the country we have mainly targeted to bring in tourists from during the off-season. Apart from India, we are also focusing on the Middle East, Japan, Australia, the US and China. Promotional campaigns are being conducted in these countries. The East Coast will see tourist arrivals after April. We have organized an exposition of the sacred tooth relic and the candy procession is also taking place. We can conduct wildlife tourism at Wilpattu and Yala year-round. Sri Lanka doesn't need to be a seasonal tourist destination. It has the potential to be a year-round destination. The Pico Trail was featured in the Time magazine's World's Greatest Places list for 2025. We intend to attract more tourists to the interior of the country. We have planned an international surfing competition with support from Australia. We believe this will be an excellent tourist season for the East Coast.
Fast track your career from O-levels with eSoft.
ඩයිබිටිසෝල් සීනිවලින් පරිස්සම් වන ඔබට අමතක නොවන පෝෂණය.
කැලනි වයර් කිසි ගින්නක් නෑ.
කිසි ගින්නක් නෑ. කැලනි ෆයර් ෂීල්ඩ් වයර්.
Off the back of MP Chamara Sampath Dasanayaka's arrest yesterday, the Committee on Public Enterprises revealed that the former minister refused to extend a gem mining contract of a company over the company's refusal to sponsor welfare projects in his constituency. This accusation comes hot off the heels of MP Dasanayaka's arrest yesterday over charges of criminal breach of trust and misappropriation of public funds.
We have received an affidavit from Lotus International Trade Private Limited regarding the gem mine project in Keraniyawaka. It reads, after the contract period expired and despite the Board of Directors of the National Gem and Jewellery Authority approving extending the contract, the authority has not taken the required measures to sign a new contract regarding the project as yet. When our company inquired of the then chairman of the National Gem and Jewellery Authority, Viraj De Silva, regarding the delay in signing the new contract, we were informed to obtain approval from the minister in charge of the authority at the time, Chamara Sampath Dasanayaka. Accordingly, when our company inquired of the aforementioned minister regarding the approval, his response was that in order to sign the new contract, the company had to sponsor and contribute to welfare and other projects organised in his polling division. Even though our company on several previous occasions fulfilled the aforementioned minister's requests, other requests, the duration of which exceeded the relevant time duration, were rejected in accordance with business ethics and morals. And we hereby affirm that we strongly believe that such a request was the cause for approval not being granted for the signing of the contract related to the project. Answer me definitely. Why did you delay signing the contract?
ඔබතුමා නිශ්චිතව කියන්න. ඔබතුමා ඇයි ආසං කිරීම කල් දාන්නේ?
හිතාමතා කල් දැම්මේ නැහැ ගරු සභාපතිතුමනි.
ඒතකොට ඔබතුමා මේ කරු ප්‍රකාශය හරිද නැද්ද? දැන් ඔබතුමා කියලා තියෙනවා එමෙතුමා හම්බෙන්න කියලා එමෙතුමා කියලා තියෙනවා මට උදව් කරොත් අසං කරන්න දෙන්න.
ඒක මම දන්නේ නැහැ.
දැන් මෙතන තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නේ තමයි මෙතුමාට අසං කරන්න තියෙන බලය අර චාමර සම්පත් කියන මෙතුමාගේ ඉල්ලීම ඉටු කරන තාක්කල් මෙතුමා මේ අසං නොකර හිටියා. එහෙම කරපු ඔබතුමා දැන් මෙතන අපිව නොමග යවන්න උත්සාහ කරනවා.
MP Chamara Sampath Dasanayaka brought up an issue about privileges in Parliament 2 weeks ago. He stated that an incorrect picture of him was painted during a meeting of the Committee on Public Enterprises. Now a company, not an individual, has presented an affidavit that will be accepted as evidence in court. It states that the contract was not extended because the minister's personal requests were not fulfilled. We have written evidence.
අපි මේක අල්ලස්සෝ දූෂණ කොමිසමට යොමු කරන්න කෝප් කමිටුව හරහා.
The International Monetary Fund says it is crucial for Sri Lanka to maintain reform momentum as its economy is still vulnerable. Addressing a press briefing, IMF spokesperson Julie Kozak said the global lender would inform Sri Lanka on its stance with regard to state-owned enterprises in the coming days.
On Friday, February 28th, the IMF Executive Board approved the third review under the EFF arrangement for Sri Lanka, and this provided the country with immediate access to $334 million of support. With this $334 million, it brings total financial support from the IMF to Sri Lanka to $1.34 billion US. Reforms in Sri Lanka are bearing fruit. The economic recovery is gaining momentum. Inflation remains low. Revenue collection on the fiscal side is improving, and international reserves are continuing to accumulate. Economic growth reached 5% in 2024, and that was after 2 years of economic contraction. And we do expect the recovery to continue in 2025. All of this said, the economy still does remain vulnerable, and therefore it is critical that the reform momentum be sustained to ensure that macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability are durably achieved. Regarding the SOEs, we'll come back to you bilaterally.
The 27 student protesters who took part in demonstrations organized by the Allied Health Sciences Students' Union were arrested today. Consequent to the arrest, the arrestees were produced before the Malika Kanda Magistrates Court, where 25 of them were released on bail, while the convener of the Inter-University Students' Federation and the secretary of the Allied Health Sciences Students' Union were ordered to be held in remand custody until the 4th of April.
The Allied Health Sciences Students' Union initiated a protest in front of the Ministry of Health yesterday afternoon over several demands, including the abolition of a scheme of internships and a system of examinations conducted to recruit employees for the public service. While the protesters continued their demonstrations, 8 of them were granted permission to meet the Secretary of the Ministry of Health and hold discussions yesterday. With the discussions failing to yield positive results, the student demonstrators continued their protest before the Ministry of Health in defiance of a court order issued by the Maligakanda Magistrates Court. The court order issued as such prohibited demonstrations around the Ministry of Health within the Maradana Police Division and also prohibited protesters on the Deans Road, Seram Road, Regent Street and the Hospital Square. The order also prohibited the student demonstrators from blocking main roads and pavements. Despite the order, protesters were seen holding their demonstrations in front of the Ministry of Health. 27 protesters who defied the court order and continued their protests into the early hours of today were arrested by the police. The convener of the Inter-University Students' Federation and the secretary of the Allied Health Sciences Students' Union were among those arrested.
At around 2 or 2:30 a.m. this morning, the police surrounded us, attacked our shack and arrested our comrades. They arrested everyone who was there at the time. Before the government claimed power, their entire movement was based on protests. Now, since they are in power, they have decided to turn on student movements and attack them.
The suspects were then produced before the Maligakanda Magistrates Court subsequent to a medical inspection by the Judicial Medical Officer. Following the proceedings in court, 25 suspects arrested as such were released on surety bonds of 1 million rupees each, while the convener of the Inter-University Students' Federation, Madhushan Chandrajit, and the secretary of the Allied Health Sciences Students' Union, Nadun Darshika, were ordered to be held in remand custody until the 4th of April. Off the back of these arrests, several pressure groups and activists shared their thoughts regarding the matter.
Around 1,500 paramedics and nursing graduates are unemployed. The total cadre limit was approved 15 years ago. All successive governments failed to update this cadre limit. These graduates only have half their degree at the moment. The Ministry of Health has taken over the responsibility of the internship program off the hands of universities, paving the way for these graduates to be beaten up on roads.
Meanwhile, the other student unions across the island staged demonstrations in protest of the arrests made by the Maradana police today.
Now, drawing attention to the incumbent government's shift in policy over several fronts, including the IMF, privatization and so on, opposition leader and leader of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, Sajith Premadasa, claims that the government has also shifted its policy on freedom to protest. Addressing a meeting in Ratnapura, the opposition leader asserted that the freedom to protest existed only when the incumbent government served in the opposition.
The Samagi Jana Balawegaya held a workshop today for its candidates who will be contesting the upcoming local government elections in the Ratnapura district. The meeting was held under the patronage of SJP leader and leader of the opposition, Sajith Premadasa.
For decades, the Janata Vimukti Peramuna, now dubbed the National People's Power, had strong policy preferences. What did they say? They said no to privatization. They said no to private universities. They also rejected working with the IMF. They opposed Chinese, Western and Indian expansionism. They took to the streets and initiated protests. They brainwashed the youth with the opulent idea of socialism. They disrupted the education of the youth, pushed them to the streets and made them protest the government. They forced productive citizens to protest and stalled Sri Lanka's economy. This group sabotaged every government that came to power. A group that conducted themselves as such has failed to provide solutions today. The government is bogged down at the moment. Where is the dollar rain they promised? They said their friends abroad will pump in large amounts of dollars to the country. After sternly opposing the IMF for so long, today they dance to the IMF's tunes. The youth have lost their freedom to protest today. Unemployed graduates have also lost that freedom. That freedom only existed when the incumbent government was in the opposition. Leader of the Sarvajana Balaya, parliamentarian Dilith Jayavira, claims that the incumbent governance is only an extension of the same corrupt governance that existed in the past. He made these comments while addressing an event organized for the Sarvajana Balaya's local government election candidates in the Matale district.
The Matale district edition of the island-wide series of awareness programs conducted by the Sarvajana Balaya in view of the local government polls was held today under the patronage of the party leader, parliamentarian Dilith Jayavira.
ගෙදරකට යන්න පුළුවන්
We have created a political force that you can endorse without any shame. That is the most important thing. You can proudly say that you are a member of the Sarvajana Balaya. The government's first pledge was to arrest the corrupt. They failed to do so. I told them that they will never be able to arrest all of the corrupt. If everybody could refrain from stealing, then we wouldn't need the second of the 5 precepts in Buddhism. This government commits the most corrupt acts under the facade of being the cleanliest. 300 red flag containers were released. Nobody is talking about that at the moment. What if this happened while a previous government was in power? They would keep harping on about the 300 containers. They would comment about the prohibited goods transported in the trucks. This is only an extension of the same corrupt governance. The same actors and the same leaders are at its helm. To be precise, Ranil Wickremesinghe is the force behind this government. They are all playing this game together. This is the weakest the state has ever been. The parliament comprises poor souls. They are indeed poor souls if they don't have a vehicle to travel to parliament in, and if they need to seek permission to use the cafeteria. Their salaries are claimed by the party headquarters. So MPs run throughout their constituencies requesting money. So they are poor souls indeed. Will Sri Lanka's woes end just because the parliament is made up of such poor souls? Do you not feel bad about your country? This is what has happened.
Deputy Foreign Minister Aruna Hemachandra says that the Sri Lankan government rejects the sanctions imposed by the United Kingdom on former Sri Lankan military commanders. However, the opposition continue to criticize what it says is an underwhelming response by the government.
The British Empire, after it subjugated Sri Lanka, set the Uvavellas area ablaze and violated the rights of even the animals. We strongly condemn that same country unilaterally imposing sanctions against war heroes who were only fulfilling their duties based on unfounded allegations. The result of past governments' actions arise as crises every week, and it is the present government that has to deal with them. No matter how vocal the opposition has been in its criticisms, the government has provided positive solutions for every one of these issues. I believe the President, the Foreign Ministry and other relevant authorities will make a diplomatic intervention regarding this issue as well. The responsibility of responding to the British sanctions falls on the government. However, the government's stance or future course of action remain unclear. As I see it, the government is playing a game of hide and seek. However, they cannot do that. They have to make their stance clear.
Our
stance has already been informed to the British High Commission and government. We have made it clear that we do not agree with the sanctions and that the Sri Lankan government's stance is that at a time when the domestic mechanism for accountability and reconciliation is being strengthened, such unilateral actions complicate that process. With that being the case, we cannot understand why the opposition is confused. That statement does not clarify whether they accept or reject the assertion that war crimes had been committed or whether the sanctions were being condemned. No war crimes were committed. We defended our war heroes then, we are doing so now and will continue to do so in future. Such actions are common when the March and September sessions of the United Nations Human Rights Council approach. We will intervene on behalf of the rights of not only military personnel but the general public. We will not let anyone be treated unfairly. If the armed forces acted on behalf of the state, they will receive protection. No government is obligated to protect the commanders of the armed forces. If a military commander violated the country's own law, international law or humanitarian law, they must be punished regardless of their rank. A crime must be punished.
මේ වගේ සම්වාද අපි මේක ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරනවා විතරක් නෙමෙයි. අපි මේ වෙලාවේ ඒක අපි හිතන්නේ ඒක කිසිසේත්ම අපි අරන් යන මේ වැඩ පිළිවෙලට පක්ෂපාතී වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
Welcome back. Now in your business news, the overall rate of inflation as measured by the Colombo Consumer Price Index on year-on-year basis has increased to negative 2.6% in March 2025 compared to negative 4.2% in February. According to the latest report by the Department of Census and Statistics, the year-on-year inflation of the food group increased to 0.6% this month from negative 0.2% in February. The year-on-year inflation of the non-food group increased to negative 4.1% in March from negative 6.1% in February. Meanwhile, the CCPI for all items for March 2025 decreased to 191.6 from 192.2 in February. The month-on-month change was contributed to by a 0.43% decrease in the index value for food items and a 0.12% increase in non-food items. In other business news, the Colombo Stock Exchange closed in red today as a result of price losses in counters such as Hat National Bank, Melster Corp and Bukit Daran. The all-share price index closed 0.42% lower at 15,814.82 points, while the S&P Sri Lanka 20 edged down by 0.53% to close at 4,734.72 points. Market turnover was 1.6 billion rupees. The banking sector was the top contributor to market turnover, followed by the capital goods sector as the second highest contributor. Foreign investors closed as net sellers, offloading shares worth 218 million rupees. That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you. Have a great night.